From his early days crafting tales for Marvel to redefining the Dark Knight alongside Greg Capullo, Scott Snyder has shaped the modern comic book landscape like few others. His run on Batman introduced us to the haunting Court of Owls, Batman Who Laughs, and countless unforgettable metal moments. Now Snyder continues to push boundaries with his latest project, Absolute Batman, alongside artist Nick Dragotta, a series so impactful it became the highest selling comic of 2024. Today, we dive into the mind behind the stories, exploring Scott Snyder's journey from American Vampire to the world-shaking Dark Knight's metal and beyond. This is Creator Spotlight on Scott Snyder. We're going to focus our time today on Scott Snyder. Scott Snyder is an amazing writer, someone who I personally love his writing style. He definitely knows how to do action and storytelling. What's your take on Scott Snyder?
So Scott is one of those writers that I kind of really discovered because as you know, like I started collecting in the 80s, so I eventually found my way to Watchmen, Alan Moore, Sandman. So those were, and Frank Miller, those were kind of like, everybody talked those names in the comic shop. And then I kind of went off into different things, and I was reading comics and starting to pay attention to who was writing them. And I found that, especially in Court of Owls and a couple other books, I was like, who's writing this? It's really good. And it always seemed to turn out to be Scott Snyder. So that was kind of my exposure. I really enjoy his writing for sure.
He's finally getting to that level, I think, where he's not quite there yet at legendary status. As you mentioned, Alan Moore, we talked about Frank Miller, those guys. He hasn't reached that level. He's getting there.
Yeah.
He's definitely getting there. He has a lot of properties that we're going to see more of. And I think in maybe 2-3 years from now, he's going to be a name that might eventually become a household name. I think there's definitely possibility for that for him.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially with some of the books we're going to talk about. So for this list that you're going to see, there are books on this list that are very inexpensive, but they're worth grabbing now. I'm telling you, because it's extremely important. It's worth grabbing. Scott Snyder is a celebrated comic book writer known for redefining DC Comics with his titles Batman, American Vampire, Swamp Thing, and Justice League. He penned epic events like Dark Knight's Metal, we'll talk about that, and Death Metal, and co-created iconic characters such as the Court of Owls, Mr. Bloom, and the Batman Who Laughs. Snyder's New 52 Batman run is hailed as a modern classic, while his creator-owned projects, including Witches, Undiscovered Country, and Terra, showcase his range. A winner of multiple Eisner and Harvey Awards, Snyder's storytelling continues to captivate fans and influence the comic book industry. He's currently writing Absolute Batman with artist Nick Dragotta. As of November 2024, Absolute Batman #1 has sold approximately 400,000 copies, making it the best-selling comic of 2024. To learn more from Scott Snyder, visit his Substack blog at bestjacketpress.substack.com. He also has an Instagram page at ssnyder1835. He's always working. He does classes for writers. He does have a following of individuals. He's really good at it. I actually sat down for one of his webinars that he did a while ago. He's a pretty good guy.
Yeah, he's never been at a con that I've been at yet, so that would be cool to hear him talk.
Let's go ahead and take a look at his first published work. It's not a comic book. It's a book, and it's called Voodooheart. It came out in 2006 from the publisher known as Dial Press. You could purchase this book at Amazon for approximately $13. However, if you go to eBay, you can get it for about $5. It's his first published work.
Yeah, I had no idea till I saw this slide either, like when I was looking through.
Mm-hmm. It's also an Audible, so you could listen to it. It's very accessible. It has some praises from some writer named Stephen King. You ever heard of the guy?
I can't think if I have.
So, and it won't be the last time we hear the name Stephen King when we talk about Scott Snyder. But this is his first published work. I felt it was important to note it here. So if you're interested in reading it, go pick it up for $13 in Amazon, or if you want to go ahead and get an audio book, you're more than welcome to do that as well. All right, let's take a look at some comic books. Starting with a book that I think no one saw, and that's the Human Torch Comics 70th Anniversary Special. This came out in 2009 for Marvel. The book, you could pick up a slab at a 9.8 for $21, and the book itself goes for about $3. It's his first credited comic.
Why would you not buy it? 9.8 for $21. That's crazy.
It's cheaper than actually getting it slabbed.
Yeah.
So, but did you even think about the Human Torch?
No, I had no idea about this
Mm-hmm.
book till I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just shows you that kind of the difference between artists and writers in terms of, even though the artists we've looked at, their early appearances books sometimes didn't have a high value as well. But
Mm-hmm.
this to me, like, is also crazy. $21.
Yeah, for 9.8 per slab. It's worth noting it's not a book that everybody is gonna go crazy looking for, so that's the reason. And just sometimes artists first books are more in demand. Writers have kind of that same approach too, where people don't go looking for their first written works. But this is his first one, and it's funny to note that it's at Marvel is where he got his start. He didn't get his start as DC, where we're going to see the majority of his work comes from DC Comics. So that's his first noted credit. Something a little more mainstream is the X-Men. He did Nation X #1. This was part of before Krakoa. They tried to do this X Nation type of thing beforehand. It didn't really pan out so well. This book is $5. There's no recorded slabs.
Yeah, this is one I checked if I had it, because there was that stretch of time in there where they were all the mutants were depowered, and that whole time, like, I kind of stopped getting a bunch of X books, because this is like off the beaten path of X-Men books for sure.
Yeah, it was at a low for X-Men. They were desperately trying to get something. So this is right before the Krakoa saga, where we had, Nation X. There were some other storylines that came out. They really wasn't. No one was really gravitating towards it. X-Men just wasn't selling at that time, which is crazy to think about it, especially the way they performed in the 80s and 90s. X-Men in the 2000s, just no one cared.
Yeah.
Wolverine was part of the Avengers, which I think was a huge mistake, to be completely honest, because with him being there, it meant that X-Men didn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
That's how I looked at it. So, All right, let's take a look at our next book in this list, and that is American Vampire #1. This is his first DC title, but it's also a vertical title. And this book is going for $9. A 9.8 goes for $130. Last recorded sale was $17, and just recently. It's his first DC work, but it's also, I mentioned Stephen King. Stephen King has a backstory in this comic book. This is also a 2011 Harvey and Eisner Award-winning Best New Series. Do you know anything about American Vampire?
I've never read it, but I think that this just came out, I think, as one of those DC compacts that you can pick up for, in the States. I think they're $9.99 or $14 here. So now, maybe that's something I'll grab so I can check this out.
Mhm. Yeah, it's one of those books where, as you can tell by the title, American Vampire, it's set in the Great Depression era. And usually when you think of vampires, you think of like the Victorian age or something like that, or more modern time. You don't really think about this time period for vampires. So it's set in that era, the West. It's kind of a Western slash, Great Depression era. It's a good book. I hear a lot of good things about American Vampire. It's long lasting. He still does work with it. Um, it's his little property within the world of DC. And it was a Vertigo book, which now Vertigo is returning. So I'm sure we'll see more American Vampire in the future.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Our next book is another book a lot of people don't know about, which is Iron Man Noir. Everybody talks about Spider-Man Noir. Iron Man Noir was written by Scott Snyder, and it's going for only $9. It came out in 2010. You can pick up a 9.8 at about $100, but let's be honest, pick up the raw book and then get it slabbed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is another one I didn't know about. Iron Man Noir. I have Spider-Man Noir, so I probably saw it at the same time it came out, but I've never read this one. I'll have to look it up in my Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah. So you had Spider-Man Noir, Iron Man Noir. There's also an X-Men Noir. I don't know. There's a fourth one. I don't recall what's the fourth one. My brain's not functioning properly. But there is a fourth noir book. I want to say Black Panther, but I don't think it is. This book, again, didn't get a lot of traction, but it is a Scott Snyder. And you ever get a chance to meet Scott Snyder, ask him about Iron Man Noir and what his thoughts. I will say this much. Now that we're getting, Spider-Man Noir in a TV series with Nicolas Cage, there's a potential here.
Yeah.
There's definitely a potential that we may get something to do with Iron Man. So, again, another one of these books that I think pick it up, sit on it, and who knows? You might see it increase in value someday. Okay, let's take a look at our next book. This is where Scott Snyder became an established writer, I'll say.
Yeah.
And that was in Detective Comic 871. This is the Black Mirror storyline. Came out in 2010.
A lot of things started to click with this. You've got him writing, awesome art. So that just kind of adds to it as well. And I think because it was on Detective, which, Batman's always kind of been considered the prime Batman book, and Detective was kind of more of the secondary book. I think DC kind of let them do more, and that really paid off for
which is so weird to me, right? Detective Comic Book should be the flagship.
Oh, it's so good right now too. I just read the newest issue. Very good.
Right. It should be the flagship title more so than Action Comics. And the reason why I say that is because the DC in DC Comics stands for Detective Comics. Right? This book has a fair market value of $20. 9.8 goes for about $77. So that's pretty fair. The last recorded sale of this book was $22. What made this book, and really what made people attract to this book, was that it had, we mentioned Iron Man Noir. This was a noir series. You had Jock doing the art, which we'll get to him in a minute when we get to the next book, I believe. And it is a true detective story, which when we come to Batman and detective stories with Batman, that's what we want our Batman stories to look and feel like. I think the Batman movie, the last Batman movie with Robert Pattinson, was influenced by parts of this run as well.
Yeah. We're all hoping for a Batman movie where he has to really figure stuff out and be that detective, like that awesome world-class detective that everybody wants.
So go check this one out. This is a good $20 is still a pretty good price for this book.
Very good.
Now, a book that might be that a lot of people forget about is Flashpoint Project Superman #1. This came out in 2011. $4. No slabs recorded for this book. It features the first cameo of Superman Subject 1. This is based off of the storyline that will be eventually become the Flashpoint, part of the Flashpoint storyline. It was written by Scott Snyder. What's important about this is that this is Scott Snyder writing, even though it's an alternate version, he is writing a Superman story.
Yeah, this is another one that I didn't pick up at the time. But I didn't get a whole lot of the Flashpoint books, to be honest, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a secondary book. It wasn't something that everybody was grabbing. Everybody wanted Flashpoint main, and this was just, a addendum to it, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. But overall, $4. You want to read a Scott Snyder story with Superman on it? Here you go.
Yep.
We'll get some more Superman in a little bit. This is the one I was talking about as far as Jock goes. This is Detective Comics 880. This book came out in 2011. It goes for $138 near mint. A 9.8 goes for $334. And just recently, a 9.8 sold for $306. Even though Scott Snyder wrote it, let's be honest, it's the cover that makes people buy this book.
Yeah, this is one that somehow my shop didn't set one aside for me. And so I have just that one gap in there of this book. And I can't pay that much. So I'm kind of missing it.
It's a pretty expensive book. I seen this book as I've seen this image on a moleskin notebook. That's how iconic this image has become.
Yeah. I'm surprised it's not done as a homage more often, actually.
I've seen one or two homages, but let's be honest, Bats, Joker. I don't know, maybe Mark Seals will get to it eventually.
Yeah. You heard it here first. Send him an email.
But I will tell you this much about DC. DC, they're very what's the word? They're very protective about their cover homages. They don't just throw them out. That's the reason why we don't see the Todd McFarlane homage as much in a DC comic. Yeah, you'll see them outside of DC. They'll do homages, but DC themselves won't really do it as often. That seems to be their MO. We don't want to do homages like that, especially with something as iconic as this one.
Why sell more books? Who knows?
Somebody will do an homage, right?
Yeah.
Here's another creator-owned property. This is Sever #1. This came out in 2011. Another Scott Snyder, very inexpensive book. This is a horror story of a road trip story that he did. So it's also his first Image comic. We'll see some more Image comics of Scott Snyder. As a writer, he likes doing a lot of creator-owned stories, and this just happens to be one of them. It's a $3 book.
Yeah. This is a great one, and like you said, not his only or his last collaboration with Image. He does a lot of great stuff with Image for sure.
Yeah, so check that one out. Here's another one that I forgot he wrote, and that's Swamp Thing #1. This is from the New 52. This came out in 2011. $7, 9.8, $52. It's a first appearance of Sever, which is a different type of Swamp Thing, but we do get Alec Holland in the story as well. Did you ever get a chance to read any Scott Snyder on Swamp Thing?
No, I never did. This is another one that I missed when it came out with the New 52 books. I had most of the other ones too, but somehow I just didn't get this one.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those books that I do hear some good things about it. I don't, it's not to the same vein as his work in Batman, of course. But he does respect the source material as far as the Alan Moore run before him, and this is one of those books because he definitely credits Alan Moore as being one of his favorite writers, and it shows in this version of Swamp Thing. All right, let's take a look at our next book, and this is the book that I think we talked about the Black Mirror book. This is the book that says Scott Snyder is a Batman writer. Yeah. And that is Batman #1, the New 52. This book is going for $35, which is actually pretty affordable. 9.8 goes for $163. A purchase just happened at $26 for this book. And this starts the iconic Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo run. When you put those two together, you get magic.
Yeah, and this is a great book, and you can get this whole collection in a DC compact. I just picked it up a few weeks ago. And if you like Snyder and Capullo, Image put out We Have Demons, which is a 3-issue series,
Mhm.
which I got to talk to Capullo about when he was at the con. And that would be one that there's some stuff happening. So maybe try to find those books. There's only 3. It's only 3 issues.
Yeah.
Really good series, though.
Yeah, I was looking at that book too when I was doing the research for this one. I didn't get to it because there are some other books that I think we'll talk a little bit more about. But that's definitely a book. We Are Demons is a big book. It was a Comixology original, which we'll see a few more of those come out. However, going back to this book here, this has to be a story arc that is considered a modern classic. Because of what we're going to get with the Court of Owls. So this is the start of that whole arc that they did. Most notably, I think the best arc out of all the arcs they did together.
Yeah. And like, this is another one of those ones where, he's, for whatever reason, however he got them to do it, he got some time, and things didn't have to be settled in that Marvel way now of 5 issues and we're going to put it in a trade and we're going to reboot the series. Like, this was, there was stuff planned from the first issue that paid off in the 6th and 8th issue. This great writing done here for sure. Really enjoyed it.
This was one of those rare occasions where Scott was able to write Batman being fearful about something. He was legit scared about the Court of Owls. And this is the book that started it off. And then we have the next one, which is Batman 6, is where we get our first team appearance of the Court of Owls. Issue 2 is the first appearance of Talon. Issue 6 is the appearance of the Court of Owls. This book is going for $45. This is a little more expensive. It did sell for $55. So there was another purchase of $55 that was done recently. Actually, today a purchase was made. 9.8 of this book is going for $5 short of $300.
I'm happy to see that because I have one. So that's good. Yeah. And again, great cover, great story. And you're right. When you read this, you definitely get that sense of, Batman is fearful and worried, and he's kind of bested by these guys, and he's always kind of a step behind, which, I really enjoyed that part of the arc. I liked it.
Yeah. You said it. It's an amazing cover. This cover is sick. It is awesome. Greg Capullo did amazing work on this cover, but it's so complimented by Scott's writing. I think what they did together, like I said before, it's pure magic. Yeah. And it continues to be that way today. Batman issue number 6. This came out in 2012. Another classic story. Here's another story that I don't think gets as much praise as it should, and that's Batman 13. This is the start of the death of the family storyline. And this is one of those moments where Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder working together managed to make Joker more scary than he really was. Because now we have a disfigured Joker.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing this and I'm like, oh, this just got crazy weird.
Even just the idea for the title of the arc to be Death of the Family rather than Death in the Family, to me, that was great. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the fact that he, his face is ripped off. Now we're talking serial killer vibes here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I'm shocked that this book is not as more expensive. It's going for $9 right now. $9 near mint. $50 for a 9.8. It just sold for $2. And it's a die cut. It's a die cut cover. So
yeah.
It's crazy. This was one of those stories. Again, it didn't get as much praise as Court of Owls, but I think it was a good second arc in the Greg Capullo Scott Snyder storyline.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. Mm-hmm. And had lots of creepy stuff in it too, which is cool.
Exactly. Going back to Superman, we have Superman Unchained #1. This came out in 2013. Very inexpensive book at $2. 9.8, $39. features the first appearance of Wrath. It's Scott Snyder with Jim Lee on a Superman comic book during Superman's 75th anniversary.
Yeah. I like this series. I have the whole set. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. I liked the art. I liked the story. I just remember this coming out kind of sporadically, if I remember, but I did really enjoy it. So and Superman with Scott Snyder. So it was good.
Yeah, it may not have that same effect that the Batman stories did, but I think it's worth noting. We got Jim Lee doing the art. You got to get him a good writer, and that was a good opportunity for Scott Snyder to do some work and really spread Jim Lee's wings for Superman. When Jim Lee was fixed on Batman, I would love to see Jim Lee and Scott Snyder work on a Batman story, see how that works out.
Yeah,
that would be cool to see one day. So hopefully one day we'll see that. Our next book is another one of his creator-owned project. This is Witches #1. This came out in 2014 for Image Comics. This has a fair market value of $10 and a 9.8 going for $96. Last recorded sale was $4 for this book, and it's a horror series that reinvents the witches genre. This book has been optioned for an animated adaptation by Amazon for not one, but 2 seasons. That's gotta mean they have a lot of faith in this story.
Yeah, this is, like I've said in other weeks, this is one that when I go to the shop on Thursday, I got to make a mental note and remember to ask them if they have it. Because, yeah, it'd be good to catch up on this one for sure.
Yeah. Like when it comes to the occult, when it comes to the supernatural, Scott Snyder likes that genre. You don't get to see him do a lot of it, but this is one of those stories that, it has that Blair Witch vibe to it. When you see it, it looks like a Blair Witch knockoff, to be completely honest with you. However, it's one of those books that if it's going for $10 now, there's a good possibility it's going to go up. And if you grab it now, and again, this is one of a couple. American Vampire is another one of those books. Grab them. Just grab them. Hold on to them. Yep. I'm not saying they're going to increase in value immensely, but if the properties become famous, again, when it comes to indie titles, they have high risk, but also high reward. This is one that I think has the highest reward possibilities because it's been optioned for 2 seasons, not just 1, 2. So check that one up. Let's take a look at our next book here. Here's one that when I saw it, it just caught my eye. And that's AD After Death #1 for Image Comics. This came out in 2016. Another very inexpensive book at $3. This is a dollar bin book, guys. And it's set in a near future where death has been cured. And it features art by Jeff Lemire. Yeah,
that's just weird enough that I would want to try to find this book just based on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know anything of the story. This is the first time I actually hear about this story. It came out a few years ago, so it's been out for 8 years now. It's gonna be 8 years now. It's been around. I'm curious to see what people's thoughts of this book is. And that's $3. Why not? Just read it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Here's another one that I think is sorely undervalued, and that's Dark Days, the casting #1. This came out in 2017 for DC. Fair market value $7. 9.8s go for about $68. It's sold this week for $1. And it has a cameo appearance of the Dark Multiverse, which also features the Batman Who Laughs. A character that I know is very popular.
Yeah, for sure. And there were so many books that came out with this whole metal thing that this is one that I missed. I just was looking it up. I have the Forge one, but I don't have this one.
This is the one that he wrote it. It's funny, he didn't write the first appearance of the Batman Who Laughs. That goes to the Titans book. But it's his idea, his concept. the cameos here, which I think is crazy to think. And this
Yeah.
book is someone bought this book for $1
Yeah.
this week.
That's awesome.
That's the epitome of dollar bin book.
Yeah.
DC Metal was fun. That's what I got to say about that. Which brings us to Dark Knight's Metal #1.
Yeah.
Another very inexpensive book, but this is the start of DC Metal with Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. I just would love to have been in that room when they started talking about this. Let's do something that's just metal, man, and they're just being rockers right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah!
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
You can even see it in the cover.
Oh no, they were going all in on metal. You know what I mean? So, but there is a I was trying to look for it, but I couldn't really find it. There is a metal album. Have you heard about the album?
No, I haven't heard it.
They made a comic that features an LP record with it attached.
Oh, no.
So I have to go back to look for it. I couldn't really find it at the time. I didn't have enough time to look for it, but it does exist. I'm almost certain Mark would know about it. But it is something that's out there. And metal it had some length. It wasn't like a short miniseries. There were series that came together with it that ended up becoming almost like an omnibus of comics. This is pretty much one of this is the start of the story arc. It really starts with Dark Days, but this is issue #1. Go pick it up, $3. Read if you have a chance to read it digitally, go ahead and read it. It's just fun. That's all it is. It's just fun storytelling, right? Our next book in this list is Justice League #1. This came out in 2018. Another book that's very inexpensive at $7 with a 9.8 going for $26. Last recorded sale was $6. And it features the first team appearance of the Legion of Doom led by Lex Luthor. I really have to double check on this one if it's true or not. But this, from what I read, this is the first appearance of the Legion of Doom as a group within the DC universe.
Yeah, and this is one of those rare ones that came with a free digital code in it. DC only did that with a few books, and this was one of them. I have it somewhere digitally. I don't even know how I would look at it, probably DC's site, but I always enjoy good Justice League books, so this one I have all of this run as well.
And what are your thoughts of it being the first team appearance of the Legion of Doom in comic continuity?
I'd have to go back and read it again to see for sure. I'd have to look it up too and see if that's what CLZ says. But
yeah,
I remember seeing those guys. For me, I remember that in the Harley cartoon, which just made me laugh. So,
well, they do have the Injustice gang that exists prior to the Legion of Doom, but the Legion of Doom by title, I don't think ever existed in the DC universe until this moment. So, kind of weird that it took that long for it to happen, though.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Because we're talking about the 70s when the Legion of Doom was first introduced in the cartoons. So to go all the way to 2018, that's crazy to think about. All right, let's take a look at our next book. Batman Who Laughs #1. This came out in 2018. This actually features the art of Jock. It's a $9 book. I do have a copy of this book. 9.8 goes for $59. Last recorded sale was $8, and this features the first appearance of Grim Knight. This is an alternate reality Batman who uses deadly force. So this is more of what if Batman was the Punisher?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I like this series. I felt like I remember the feeling of that I was missing a key issue or something as I was reading through all of these metal books and everything, because I do have them and I enjoyed them, and the covers are great too. They go right along with
it. Yeah, and then with Jock's artwork, how could you go wrong with that? I love this cover. I think this is a phenomenal cover. I just like that little "miss me" in the bottom where he says that.
Yeah,
it looks really good. Great lighting effect as well in this book. The Batman Who Laughs is obviously a derivative character, but I don't know how to think about it. You know what I mean? It's like, what if Batman and Joker became the same individual? That's kind of the concept behind it,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
Um, but is he worse than the Joker?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd say probably.
Hmm. Because he's Batman,
Yeah.
but he has this. So you guys tell me in the chat: is Batman Who Laughs more dangerous than the Joker? I'm curious. I want to hear from you guys. Okay, but I personally like Batman Who Laughs. First of all, he has one of the sickest costumes. I
Oh,
love his
yeah.
costume.
Yeah.
So all it is, I've seen guys walk around like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's a great concept for sure.
Mhm. Next up, Batman Last Night on Earth. This is a DC Black Label comic. This came out in 2019. There was a lot of talk about this book when it came out because it was technically the last Snyder Capullo story as they were promoting it. This book is $6, $24, $5 just sold. It's supposed to also be the last story, the Batman's last story ever told. Um, I have not had a chance to read this, but did it live up to the hype?
I enjoyed it. You know, it had an interesting part. You can tell from this cover, so it's not a spoiler. But there's some funny interactions that I remember between Batman and that's the Joker's head that he's carrying around there.
Yeah.
And so, and it talks to him sometimes, just kind of some funny interactions there. So I did like it. It's not a long series either. I think it was only 3 or 4 issues.
Yeah, it was about 3 issues, I think. And I think it was one of those stories that I think Scott Snyder was looking at when he was trying to make um a bigger universe out of it for Justice League. So I think there was something to be said about that. Um when it came out, it was people were talking about it. I remember there was a lot of talk about it. Obviously in 2019 we only had the pandemic was just around the corner, so I don't know how well it performed afterwards. It's interesting to note that this book is going for about $6, which is generally the cover price of the book.
Yeah, yeah, because it's a cardstock, like
Mm-hmm.
thick book with the book end type of wrap on it. So it's yeah, that would be cover price for sure.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then here's another book that I think you got to grab it while you can, and that's Undiscovered Country #1. This book came out from Image Comics 2019. It's going for $3, $19 for 9.8. Another dollar bin book. It's a post-apocalyptic pandemic story by Scott Snyder and Charles Soule. Charles Soule, the writer of 8 Billion Genies.
Yep.
They work together, and this book has been optioned by New Republic Pictures back in 2019. Last I heard, they're busy writing the script.
Another one that I'm going to be looking for on Thursday.
Mm-hmm. It's a book. Just have it. Just hold on to it, because you never know. Not to mention, there is a foil, and the foil came back in New York Comic Con in the same year. Goes for $80. No recorded slabs. However, it's sold way back in 2020. Believe it or not, 2020, right when the pandemic started, it's sold for $12.
It'd be interesting to see what it would sell for now.
500 copies.
Yeah.
Like, I'm willing to go hunt it down just to see what I could get it for.
Yep.
And just like I said to you, hold on to it.
Yeah, why not? Just in case for $25.
Exactly. All right, Noctera. This is another one of those popular series that he had with Tony Daniel. Came out in 2021 for Image. Fair market value of this book is $6. There's 9.8 for $33. The last sell of this book was at $6, and it has been confirmed that there is a TV deal with Netflix for Noctera that will also be with James Wan, the guy who kind of made a movie called Aquaman.
Yeah, this series is great. I've read the whole thing. It's on a break right now. Given the popularity of Stranger Things, this is kind of in line with that, but a little bit different. It's just different enough. The characters are all solid. The villains are great. The story's good. This is a book that you can easily pick up in trade, or if you want the originals, grab them. And it's a good read with great art. I highly recommend this book for sure.
And it's been picked up by Netflix, so who knows what's to
Yeah.
expect for this book as well. Scott Snyder just happens to be one of those writers that Hollywood just seems to gravitate towards. However, none of his stuff has actually become a property just yet. They're all in development stage. So I'm curious to see what will happen once it actually comes into fruition. And
Yeah.
where would that lead Scott Snyder's?
You'll have
Will he
one,
become...
and then all of a sudden, you know how Hollywood works. He'll be the big thing then.
Yeah. Will he be like the next Robert Kirkman?
Yeah.
In that way. Here's another one that I when I saw it last year, I really enjoyed it, and that was Clear #1. This book is going for $3. There's two versions of it. There's a Comixology original, which was also a digital copy. This book is $3 near mint, but look, 9.8 sold for $11.
I love it. I just love it.
It's a sci-fi mystery thrill ride into a strange dystopian future where neurological internet connection is transforming reality by Scott Snyder and Francis Manapul. This is so much fun because it's taking the concept of Ready Player One and putting it with a crime drama. So people get to live out their fantasies, and that's pretty much the reality they created for themselves in this cyber world. So it's kind of a cyberpunk type of story. It's really interesting. It's a really fun concept. It's something like the other books. It hasn't been picked up for anything like that, but I can see it be picked up one day.
Yeah. And it's got like a very cool looking cover too, for sure.
Yeah, the colors. Francis Manapul is a phenomenal artist. He's currently doing the Rocket Fellas over with Ghost Machine. So again, another worthwhile book. Okay. Another one that's been picked up for an option is Dark Spaces Wildfire #1. This came out in 2022. This book is going for $7. 9.8. Again, $12. Wow. This is one of those really cool stories where you kind of get the end in the beginning. It's also a story that's been optioned for a TV series. So, and it's kind of like in development limbo at the moment. It features the art of somebody that we talked about earlier, in Hayden Sherman, who is the artist behind Absolute Wonder Woman. Really good story. Very what's the word I'm looking for? It is heartfelt. It is a heartfelt, especially as you're reading the story, you know what's going to happen in the end.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the story is about.
Yeah, and I haven't heard of this one before either, so another one to add to the list.
All right. And now we're coming to the end of our list here. We just got one more book after this one. We talked about this ad nauseum. All in Special #1, 2024. This book is going for $8. 9.8s are going for $90. The last recorded sale was $5. It's the introduction of the Absolute Universe. What's to say, right?
Pick up this book. You should pick it up.
So every time I hear about the Absolute Universe, I keep thinking to myself, was the intention to create a universe, or was it the intention was to create some kind of Elseworld story, and DC liked it so much that they wanted to make it into a universe?
Yeah, it's tough to say because they wouldn't have known ahead of time about the success that was going to come up for sure. I mean, you can't really tell by reading them. You could let a bunch of people read them and maybe they all would like it, but it's hard to say. But either way, that is a good book to pick up for $8.
Oh yeah, and the whole dark side effect. Dark side he's the balance of good and evil, being the evil side, and now spoiler alert, he's dead. Even though I don't think he's dead, but you got to read the New Gods to find out what's going on with that part of the equation. So it's a pretty good story, and we end it off with what he's currently working on. That's Absolute Batman #1. What's there to say that hasn't been said about this book before?
From a writing perspective, I imagine that it was a lot of fun for him since he worked on Batman for so long to kind of do some things that maybe he thought would always be cool. Probably kept some notes as he went, like, it'd be cool if you could do this with Batman, or if Alfred was this. And boom, boom, boom. I think maybe that's what happened with Absolute Batman, because there's a lot of cool stuff in it, and the writing is solid.
And as he once mentioned, he wanted to name it Batman AF, and DC said no.
Yeah.
And he managed to get Batman AF in issue 2. That's a cool little story to go there. But his work with Nick Dragotta has been amazing for the storyline, especially with the amount of panels that some of the pages have. Like, he's managed to put like 14 panels to a page, and it still works.
Yeah.
So that's something that I always thought was impressive about the storytelling aspect of it. And like you said, he's doing things that he know he couldn't do with Batman proper. That he says, okay, in this world, Batman could do this. In this world, Batman could do this. And right now, we're currently in the storyline where Batman is about to take a bribe, or is he going to take a bribe? That's
right. Exactly.
That's the cliffhanger that we're left with. So I'm enjoying Absolute Batman. I think this is going to be one of these books that we're going to talk about years to come. I'm more curious to see what's the lasting effect of Absolute Batman once it's all said and done.
Yeah, me too. Especially, I'm giving all of the main 3 Absolutes anyway, their first 5 issues. And then I'm going to sit down and read them all again and kind of go from there.
Mm-hmm. So there you have it. Fair market value of this book is $37 right now. This book has been climbing the charts. 9.8s are going for just shy of $100. Is it going to go up, or is it going to start dropping down? But there's at least 400,000 copies of this book. And as you said it, I say up to 5 printings of this book. That's what I said. All right. Tell me, guys, what you think about this Creator Spotlight. I'd like to know in the comments. Let me know what's your favorite story of Scott Snyder. And we'll see you at the next Creator Spotlight. I don't know exactly what we have planned for next week. We kind of like call it by ear sometimes. But there are some good stuff coming up for more Creator Spotlights to come. I look forward to doing them. I enjoy doing it, and it shows in the analytics. This happens to be the best segment of the show. So let me know in the chats what's your thoughts of Creator Spotlight Scott Snyder. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more comic content. Check out these other videos for even more insight, and I'll see you at the next one. Excelsior.